What would you change in the real estate industry if you had a magic wand? One thing, anything you want.
The first thing I would want is there would be a standard in the industry for real estate professionals. So if you can't sell X number of homes annually, you can't be in the business anymore. The second thing is we need to get back to legislation at the National Association of Realtors to start fighting for consumers at a deeper, more efficient level, and for real estate professionals. That I'm not saying NAR's entirely dropped the ball, but certainly the last 4 years have been a struggle for the industry. So we need to maybe reimagine what are the bylaws and what's the focus of NAR? I think we need to move towards something like a union for real estate agents, because I do believe the retirement issue for real estate agents is nearly impossible, right? So they sell houses for 15 or 20 years. If they have a wonderful career, 30 years, and most of them don't buy enough of their own product. They don't set aside enough money for retirement. So I would want some sort of universal strategy around a percentage of every check that they get to go towards a retirement account. So when I say unionize, I don't really want a union, but I want some of the benefits, some of the positive benefits that you see from unions, not the we all vote this way or vote that way.
What was popping in my head is, oh my gosh, those that are the least productive would have the time to run the unions.
I don't want that.
You don't want that.
But I want, but
you want a safety net.
Yeah. If you're a real estate agent, you should be able to get, a credit union of yours. You should be able to get a retirement plan. You should be able to get insurance. They're the heartbeat of 17% of the GDP of our country.
Welcome to the very first episode of the Goats of Real Estate podcast. It's been my lifelong journey to explore what makes the most successful business leaders tick. So it's a dream to host this podcast and be able to get in the heads of these most influential real estate leaders. This episode unpacks who Tom Ferry was, currently is, and who he wants to be. We get into the story of what makes this extraordinary person tick. You will hear that Tom is both a dedicated father, business leader, and my friend. By the end of it, I hope each of you draws insights that you could apply to your own business and personal lives.
Okay, so Tom, thank you for being here for episode 1.
Show number 1
of the Ghost of Real Estate.
All right.
We're trying to do
that
something.
Sounded like the ghost of real estate. I was like, did I just die? What's going on here?
Okay.
The goats of real estate.
No, you're very much still alive. The goats of real estate. Mm-hmm. So I get asked this question frequently. Mm-hmm. I know you're out with hundreds, thousands of people a week.
Yep.
You're kind of a big deal. The most frequent question I get asked when I'm out with folks is, what's the insight for how I achieve, grow, build, lead? And it's not about me. It's about how do these people separate from the pack? So that's where we're going to start here.
Right on.
So let's talk about who Tom is. Best-selling author.
Best-selling author.
Yes. Your favorite business.
Yes. I hate that business, but yes.
I think the most followed real estate coach on social, 820,000 combined followers, I think is what we calculated last evening. And I think you're generally viewed as the Energizer Bunny of travel, goodness, kindness of the real estate industry. I heard you referred to recently as the most kind person in real estate.
I like that.
And of everything, I think you would like that the most.
Yeah. Yes. That actually means a lot, because when I'm on stage or talking with clients, one of the things I will frequently remind people of is you want to be wildly successful, you have to have an enormous capacity to care. You have to have an enormous capacity to care. You got to be able to take care of a lot of people. So that resonates.
So that's a
for me.
bullet you put on a memo and you go to ChatGPT and it tells you how to care, right?
No. No, that is being raised by a single mom who was a Mouseketeer, who was a singer, a dancer, a songwriter, and then being raised by my pops, who was the opposite of that. Very caring, but very, used to be called the Don Rickles of real estate training, maybe for the modern listener, the Howard Stern of real estate training, right? He was in your face.
Even I didn't know who Don Rickles was.
Yeah, just in case, right? So very abrasive, very in your face, but it made sense for him because at the time there was nothing but people that really wanted to be liked. So he wanted to be the opposite of it. Mine is just organic.
You started in a great spot. You got to it very quickly. You've been very kind to me, and you're generally very gracious and kind to the people around you. And you're right, that has to become from a place of authenticity. You must feel this. So you gave me a wonderful, wonderful gift, which is the gift of therapy.
Yes.
And you're not my therapist, but tell us about, we're just going there, the importance of authenticity, the importance of what you've learned in therapy, and what you would want folks to think about, and maybe why you gave me that gift.
So Starting very early in my adult life, I would say I could literally, Greg, go back to when I was like 6 years old when my mom hung up the phone and said, "Your dad is leaving us." And she hung up and my older brother started crying and I immediately said, "How can I help? Like, what, do you need me to make the beanie weenies?" Like, just when you take on at an early age, the way I view sort of the early age of my life, when you take on more responsibility, you lose a part of your childhood. So it was for me like in probably, well, let's see, I started professionally in my career at 18, but I was, in sales and doing odd jobs, worked at a grocery store when I was like 15, 16, 17, et cetera. But by the time I was like 25 or 30, I owned like 3 houses. I had started 5 companies. I didn't go to college. So I missed a lot of what a lot of my friends experienced as young adults. And it was probably in my mid 20s talking with one of my mentors. And he reminded me of that sort of metaphor of all of our lives were like an onion, and the more you peel away, you finally get to the core of who you really are.
Yes.
And what we do as humans is we sort of surround ourselves with layers of stories and nonsense and guardrails and protection, in many cases from things that maybe happened, maybe didn't happen. And it was really one of my early mentors who said, have you ever thought about going to a therapist? And I said, well, that's funny because at this point I was maybe 3 years into being a business coach.
Okay.
So, 26-ish, something like that, 25, something like that. And then he reminded me that every therapist has a therapist and every business coach who takes on the problems of all of his clients or all of her clients needs to have some outlet. So it's not that I've been in therapy for, 25 or 30 years, but what if I told you that last night I found myself calling arguably one of the greatest therapists, certainly living today, 40 years of 4-hour-a-day, 5-minute sessions, real time helping people around the world. His name is John Jolliffe. He's just an extraordinary human being. Called him yesterday and said, "Hey, I'm in town. I need to see you." And he said, "Is there anything wrong?" I'm like, "No, but I'm human. So I'm sure there's something there to unpack." So I'm a fan of, who was it? Was it Socrates that said like, a life that isn't examined and re-examined isn't a life worth living?
That's right. That's how you learn.
Right.
So one of the most powerful things in life is pattern matching.
For sure.
A great investor, an Australian investor, taught me this. And, we're each living a path to a degree that others have walked others are currently walking. And if you have the openness to study their path and your own, you could choose where you go with this thing.
Right.
And that could come from being reflective in therapy, from a coaching session, or from a mentor.
Here's the challenge, though. So we take on a path of someone else. We take on a model of someone else, and we say, like, okay, I want to emulate that gal. I want to emulate that guy. You start to run those plays over and over again, but oftentimes it isn't your most authentic self. It's not really your DNA, but it gets you a certain result. But then what I found is you get to the end result and you're not satisfied.
Isn't that funny?
So you're
Isn't that funny?
Right. So you're like, I achieved the goal, but I'm miserable. And so I think a lot of it for me is just the constant. Jay Abraham is a mentor of mine. He says, if you don't reimagine yourself every 18 months, if you don't reimagine your business every 18 months, you become irrelevant to the marketplace. And
Yeah, so take me back. We're gonna build these blocks up so folks can follow. And I'm realizing I'm in pod 1.
Yes.
And who did I choose as guest 1 of pod 1?
The guy that loves doing podcasts and hates being on this side.
Yes, that guy.
Yes.
And one of the guys that is one of the great communicators. So we're gonna see what we got here on this pod. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Southern California, Orange County, kind of Huntington Beach, Seal Beach, Westminster, Newport, just kind of bounced all around.
School?
I went to Thomas Paine Elementary because it was walking distance from our house back when kids used to do that. McGarvin, 7th and 8th grade. And then I went to 5 high schools and graduated with a GED.
Yeah, so this is famous. This is real estate fame.
Yes.
If folks have ever been to one of your events or heard your stories or care about you. Why? What was going on in Tom Ferry's young teenage self that a very bright, high IQ guy was bouncing?
So the first school I went to, 9th and 10th grade, was fantastic. It was a private school that my mom sent me to.
Yes.
Primarily because she didn't want me to go to the same school as my older brother, who had a purple mohawk and was constantly getting in trouble and wearing dresses to school before I think that was cool, and dog collars and all that kind of good stuff. And she just thought it might be safer for young Ferry to go to another school.
Okay.
So I went to this great school, kind of very artsy, super easy to get straight A's, had a ton of fun, met a lot of great people, and then was ultimately expelled because of some bad behavior. And then I started the bouncing journey, La Quinta High School, then where'd I go? La Quinta, Corona Del Mar, Newport Harbor. I just got bounced just because I was a bad kid. If you were talking
to young Tom right now,
yeah.
I mean, there's a purpose to getting into these stories early, right?
Yeah.
And I'll frame this out. From therapy and from life and from pattern matching, I think a lot is encoded in us young.
I agree.
That's often in a youthful time unmanaged, but in later life is often the key to who we become.
For sure.
And our success or our failures. So young Tom, what was young Tom learning from bouncing from school to school, whether it be sports? What were you reacting to?
How to win friends and influence people. I never read that book until, certainly in my 20s. But when you get bounced from one school to the next, and you don't show up looking like a handsome preppy guy from Connecticut, you show up with black hair and earrings, and a black leather jacket, and it's like summertime. And you very quickly realize that, if you sit in the front of the class, you're going to engage differently from the back of the class.
You bet. Where'd you sit?
I always sat in the front.
Yeah.
I always sat in the front because I kind of slightly attention disinterest disorder. So I knew early on if I was here, I was going to be more engaged. But also that if you ask a lot of questions, people love to talk about themselves. So I learned very early not to say, hey, I'm new to the school and let me tell you my story. I'm like, hey, so what's this school all about? Like, where do you find yourself? And just, what do you guys do for fun? And does anybody ditch here? And just who throws all the best parties? I throw a really good party. Should we throw a party? I was kind of that kid. So I was always engaging and I was able to create relationships as, again, I'll be 53, right? So back when I was going to high school, there was punk rockers and rockers and there was jocks and there were all these sort of sub camps, if you will. And I was able to create relationships with all the camps. Right, mainly because I knew how to throw good parties and have fun,
and so the die was being cast
for sure
all the way back.
I was doing events early.
Exactly, you were doing events and you were creating relationships. And I find among friends who grew up in military families, and we're moving every 2 years, they're often the very best salespeople and the best marketers because they had to adapt frequently.
100%.
And you could start to see that foundation in Tom Ferry happening by necessity, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't think for any second that I wasn't completely insecure, nervous. You know what I mean? That goes back to that layer thing. I would just put up this sort of, it's my buddy Todd wrote a book called The Alter Ego, right? So you're going into a new school, you're going into a new job, you're going into a new career, you're starting a new business. You have to act like you're the person that can. So I would put that on. Yeah. And then slowly over time, as you met people, the guard
sounds exhausting.
I don't recommend going to 5 high schools. I mean, it was great for, creating a nice peer group, but I certainly don't recommend it.
So you went from high school to high school. Were you a jock? Were you a sporto?
I played, I was a point guard, 9th and 10th grade, played a lot of basketball, but when I got into the next couple schools, this was a small school, everybody got to play, right? By the time I got to the bigger schools, it was not an option and I didn't care about it.
Yeah. So I did a little research, reached out to the network, the Tom Ferry network.
Scary.
There's some original content. There might have been a surfboard or a skateboard.
Absolutely.
And there might have been a nickname back then. And
did you call my little brother?
Might have been a nickname.
Nervous.
And one of the traditions we'll have on this pod is we love to gift. One of the most wonderful attributes in life that I aspire to is to be generous and to gift.
I love that.
And if we can connect those to deeply held things, it's a powerful thing.
Yes.
So in my digging, I heard Skater Dude.
Yes.
Was an early nickname. Yes. So let us surprise you.
Okay, now I'm very, very nervous now. Oh, sweet.
This is the first official
Is this a Tomo board?
Skateboard. And so the gift of Pod 1 right here.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to need this definitely signed.
The gift of Pod 1 is Skater Boy, or Skater Dude, pardon me. That was the nickname.
Skater Dude.
Skater Dude. Hopefully those bearings are good.
Yes.
Skater Dude gets a Tomo board to add to his collection. Don't hurt your ankle or I'm going to get in trouble.
No way. This is good. Thank you.
So there you go. Get on that.
Thank you. I just got really tall all of a sudden. Yes. I like this a lot.
Compared to me, you're always tall.
Thank you.
So, going back to that moment and how that bridges to today, because there's a link. There's always a link.
Always.
You were a kid that hit many high schools because you started this. You started to anchor it because mom and dad weren't together probably anymore, and there was stuff going on, and you were working through some things.
Middle kid, so
kid.
not the adult, not the baby. Yeah.
Maybe you were looking to be seen
for sure,
and heard and valued, and you were a talented kid. And so you went from skater dude to big time business guy pretty quickly.
I don't know about quickly, but
how many properties did you own at what age?
3. So I bought my first house at 19, like right after I turned unusual. Like from 18 to 19.
Okay.
Yeah,
and what enabled you to make that initial jump?
I went into sales.
Yeah.
Sales.
Tell us about that.
So fast version, so obviously my father is an iconic name in this industry. And when I remember, so I was kicked out of his house when I was like 16, right? So I moved out, kind of lived on the streets, but like in fairness for the person listening, I was living in Newport Beach. It was summertime. I went to Balboa Island, hung out with my friend Mike Hardesty, God bless his mom, who's a real estate agent, Mary Hardesty, who would let me like surf on the couch and hang out.
So
I wasn't suffering.
The palm tree, golden paved
Thank
streets.
you. This is like, like I was homeless in Palm Beach, right?
Yes,
like that's basically what it was like. And then as sort of the summer was ending, I called my older brother and said, hey, we should get an apartment. And, we ended up getting an apartment in Costa Mesa, and that's a whole other kind of crazy story. But it was fast forward maybe a year and a half later, I was working from midnight to 9 at a grocery store, and they would let me work from 3 to midnight, midnight to 9 and get like a double shift and then make like time and a half. So when you're like 17
it's funny.
And you're making like $20 an hour and you don't care, like 3 to midnight, midnight to 9, like whatever.
It's probably $9 an hour, by the way, not 20.
No,
it's 20.
No, well, because time and a half, right?
Oh,
so
time and a half.
Time and a half, right? So I mean, it was great cash, and my rent was like $600, and my motorcycle was like $50, and gas. It was like a little Honda 125cc motorcycle, not like a Harley. But I had the reflective moment where it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting next to the guy next to me, and we're both stocking shelves, and like. I like working, right? So I'm like stocking and stocking and stocking and stocking. And I've noticed I'm going really fast, and he's just kind of taking his time and doing something and slowly doing his thing and kind of wanted to chit chat most of the time. And I'm like, no, efficiency, get it done. Like, let's go, let's perform, right? And I look at him and I had this moment. Holy shit, that's going to be me at 35. I was like 17. He was 35. He was old, right?
Yep.
And it hit me. I need to do something different. And I didn't know what different was, but it was like, maybe 2 months of that reflection. And then my dad comes walking into the grocery store, and he's wearing like a, slick Armani suit, probably just pulled in from LAX, probably spoke in 5 different cities in 5 days.
And for those,
yes.
Tom Ferry is the iconic leader coach. Tell us about your dad just for a moment here. Folks may not know him.
Okay. So my dad is a legend. So my dad flunked out of San Jose State trying to get a degree in speech and communication, and then becomes one of the most iconic presenters and is a legend amongst the NSA, the National Speakers Association, like forever. My grandfather, his dad, by the way, started Toastmasters in Orange County. So it's in the blood.
Oh gosh.
You know, like it's, we're a presenting kind of family, I guess. Yes. But he went to work for a guy named Earl Nightingale. Earl created the motivational speaking industry. He was doing $1 million a month, selling records like The Strangest Secret, and got to set goals and all this kind of stuff. Turned that into Nightingale Kona, which became a huge, what we would almost look at like as an Amazon marketplace of every motivational speaker on the planet. So my dad was there, became his number one salesperson, started to ascend, got fired, and then went into real estate. Sold houses for 18 months. Chose the career. I'm going to go into real estate for 18 months. Then I'm going to build the greatest real estate sales training business, because the only other person out there is Tommy Hopkins.
This what year?
This is like 1975.
This is the foundation. This is the foundation.
Yeah, 1978 he starts, and he basically is just getting paid, $300 to $500 to go do a talk. And he would go do a talk anywhere he could, all across the country, anywhere, driving in this old 300D Mercedes that Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, later took and put another couple 100,000 miles on it. It's a very incestuous little world. But that was the foundation. Hard work, discipline, provide value, build a business, do it the right way. There was no technology back then. So when I joined, it was like this little $3 million business where he never knew where he was going to be the next day, the next week. He never knew, how many people would be in the room. Could he sell his books and tapes?
He just knew that the activity was going to lead to an outcome.
He was like every great entrepreneur in the beginning. If I just focus on revenue and taking care of my clients and providing value, I'm going to win. But if most don't focus on the revenue side, they're like, let me build the world-class product and then it's going to come. He was like, the product will come. I'll find it if I just go talk to enough people. I'll find out what they need, and then I'll develop that and then bring it back out to the marketplace. So again, by the time I got to him, he was doing $3 million a year in revenue. I run him to the grocery store, and I remember like, Greg, I've got like purple hair. I'm wearing a Bauhaus t-shirt, which will only have, some connection for some people listening. And I run up to him and I go, Dad, I want to run your company.
Awesome.
So we hadn't talked in 18 months.
Yes.
And he, you got to get, we're at Bond's Pavilion on Bayside Drive in Corona Del Mar. And he has a, shopping cart in his hand. He looks at me and he goes, when the drugs wear off, come talk to me.
Yes.
So as the joke said, I waited 5 or 6 hours, and the next day I dyed my hair to a reasonable color, put on my best all black outfit because that's all I ever wore. And I walked in with this just complete nonsensical 5-year plan. I'm going to
And you walked into an iconic figure in your life.
For sure.
Your dad is a larger than life character.
Huge.
And figure. And so you walked on in as the middle son.
Yep.
With a nonsensical plan.
Yes.
While working the grocery store.
Yes.
And he said,
I presented my 5-year plan, which in 5 years I would be the president of the company. And he said, okay, that's terrific. He offered me a job, which was less than what I was working or less than what I was getting paid at the grocery store. I accepted it on the spot, gave notice, and basically just, I was like shipping and receiving. Like I did every shit job to learn the business. I don't know whether it was by design or he just didn't know where else to put me. I think probably he just didn't know where else to put me. Learn accounting, did a little bit of marketing, but we didn't really have marketing back then. It was like faxing flyers to people. Like that was marketing. And then
faxes were progressive.
It was awesome, right? And then finally he's like, hey, why don't you go into sales? And that's where it all turned.
And that's returned because these innate skills you had built by going from high school to high school, trying to be seen and make connections. I'm getting therapeutic on you here, but
I love it.
Trying to make connections, you found your path that brought that all together. And then what happened?
It exploded. I went from making, $25,000 to 65 the next year, 125 the next year, 200. In my third year of sales, I had 2 or 3 telemarketers working for me, making phone calls. So all I could do is just present all day long. 2 headsets.
Tom, how'd you know how to do that?
So what I figured out was it was super inefficient for me. Even if I had 2 phones and I was dialing simultaneously and then one person would answer, I couldn't get a hold of enough people fast enough. And what I would do is I'd take a younger sales guy and then a younger sales gal and say, listen, the commissions are $100. I'll give you half. Just get people on the phone. I can close more than anybody. So they would just start working for me as
there
like
wasn't
OSA, ISA.
So there wasn't inside sales coaching businesses back then.
Hell no.
So you had to invent this. And your dad gave you the room? At this point, the trust was there sufficient? So your dad gave you the room to do this?
He was on the road all the time.
Good.
So there wasn't like, I think we got a sales manager, Greg Howard, shout out to Greg. I think in like year 3, he lasted a year and then I took his job.
So let's pull this thread a second. You got kids?
Yep.
They're adults now.
22 and 24.
And one of the most frequent things we all encounter, I see it in my wife's family as well, is family businesses.
Yes.
So pull the thread here on a little bit of advice. I know you talk to this from time to time. We meet many real estate teams, top real estate teams who have kids coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe mom and dad run the business. They're looking to step back to the beach maybe a little bit more. Yeah. What do you do? What have you learned? What's your advice?
So this might be counter to what many would think about. I actually opted for my kids to go work for someplace else first. I would love for them to be a part of the business, right? I would love it. But what I don't want, so when I joined my dad's place, it was, my dad was becoming iconic. And by the way, 1996, he was named the top 5 most influential person in all of real estate behind like Greenspan, the U.S. Congress, President Clinton. Like he was a pretty legit figure in the space. Now that was 7 years into my career. So, legit. Today, if my kids join, there's 400 people, coaches. It's a bigger business. And I don't want them to step in and have the last name and have any thoughts that they could just rise.
Why not?
I've just seen that fail too many times. I'd rather them go work for you, work for somebody else, get fired, learn that if they don't show up on time, that's a bad thing. Learn the discipline and respect of, building and being on a team, what it means to like go to your manager and say, how can I help you win? What do I need to do to support, like everything we learn, like the books, like the 48 Laws of Power, right? Like it's all of that. And then if you decide maybe in your late 20s or your early 30s, if you want to come inside the business, you've earned some credibility to come in and maybe take on a role or a division or bring me a new business idea.
You bet.
So I think it's just, I know it's because all of my siblings went to work for the family business.
Yep.
I don't think it makes sense.
You did as well. And you made it out. So tell us, and by the way, I think that's probably pretty valuable to folks. They love these kids. They want to pull them into these businesses.
Of course.
And they dream of working with them and giving it to them or making them buy it one day.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm with you, and I see it in a number of friends and families' businesses. I worked for a famous technology exec, Kevin O'Connor, who founded DoubleClick, which is really the foundation of internet advertising.
Yes.
And Kevin had a saying, and his saying was, there's a reverse correlation between iconic founders and the success of their companies if you give the company to the kids.
Yep. We've seen it. Yeah.
And you got to make them earn it.
I agree.
And it's one of the things you're doing with your own kids is a gift.
Yeah.
But you took a different path.
Yeah.
You went and started building your dad's company. The pressure you felt, I'm putting these on you, must have been significant because this was an iconic guy and you were going to work for him there. Did you feel pressure? Did that mold you?
So the answer is, of course I felt pressure. There is no greater pressure than when you start your own business. It's your checkbook. You raise capital. Yeah. So I was, a unexperienced diamond in the rough that was given an opportunity. And if it wasn't for mentors and Steve Azonian, Bill Mitchell, all these people that I could call and say, help. How do I do this? What's the right move? My dad was always great for that as well. Always. That's not pressure. That is just, a young guy trying to make his way in work. Pressure is leaving and starting alone, starting over.
So you left and you started over,
but I tried to buy the business first.
So tell us about the departure, and this will speak to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Me included.
Yeah.
So how do you choose to leave a family business and go out on your own? Why? What was in it? Driving you.
So I got met. So Dad, if you're listening, you know how much I love you. It's his business. He would remind me all the time.
And I don't want to start family.
No.
The point of Goats is not.
No. But we're having a therapeutic moment here.
Yeah.
He would remind me all the time whose name's on the door. And I would say, it says M, not T. I got you. I said, okay, cool. So I made it my mission to make him iconic. I made it my mission to put him on a pedestal. And then financially, we created a scenario where I basically said, hey, look, if you make X, I get a percentage of X. So we both made a ton of money together. So it was a good deal. So from a financial standpoint, everyone that I said, hey, I'm leaving, they were like, what are you talking about? Like, that's stupid. But my heart was going this way. My belief about the industry was going this way, but it's his show and he's going left. So, I can only go left for so long. Kind of like we talked about, like you're modeling somebody and you're getting tremendous success, but it's not really your path. It's not really your DNA. So the hard part was the self-awareness to say, I love my dad. I love all these incredible people that I work with, siblings, friends, et cetera, that were with me, but I got to go my own path. I got to go do my own thing. So that was a hard decision.
This wasn't about money.
No, God, no.
And so often when folks are starting new businesses, they think an agent leaves my team for a commission or for the money. No. It was something deeper that you were trying to achieve. And it sounds like it might have been independent, a degree of accountability to yourself to see if you could get it done. Or tell me more.
I think it was some of that. I think that I had the way that I wanted to do it, and I could only push that so far under the current umbrella and under the current brand. So I knew that if I wanted to go outside of the box and go from hypothesis to, hey, this actually works, I couldn't do it in that sandbox.
Yep, makes sense.
And that was the hard part. So you continue to grow and the business is evolving and, he's basically retired and, the money is fantastic and everybody's winning, right? Everybody's happy. And yet I find myself completely dissatisfied. I don't want to say depressed, but just unhappy. Just like anyone that said, when I'd say, I'm just not happy, they're like, what are you talking? Like you have a house in the desert, you have a house
money,
on the beach, you're running like,
you've got people around you.
Beautiful wife, kids, friends, life. What do you like? And I'm like, I know, but like, I just believe there's more, there's just a bigger, scratch that needed to be.
And so that's a good departure point from the story of young Tom, or Skater Dude, and Tom the executive and Tom the leader. What drives you? Why do you get out of bed? Why are you doing this? What's the objective? What's the pot of gold? What's the peak of the mountain? Where are you trying to get to?
So I think that changes when you're so this is the 20th year since my wife and I started this business. So in the beginning, it is fear, right? And fear is a fantastic driver, right? Like, we have to succeed. Oh my goodness. My dad just said from the stage, give it 6 months. He'll be back. I was like, oh,
fear of failure.
Thank you so much for saying that. It was all I needed, right?
Yes.
But then fear only takes you so far. So it goes from fear to like the strive for like product market fit. Yeah. Hey, we're replicating plays that we knew worked, but how do we want to do it? So that passion around innovation and then being first in market. So those those are like value sets for me that are constantly driving me. But it's interesting, today having a conversation with Peter Diamandis, like about what's the MTP today versus when you started. What's the massive transformational purpose? I've always been about how do I help my clients, be world-class in their marketplace? Like, that's always been it. And basically what I was told was, okay, so you've done that with a lot of people. Now what? And I was like, oh. And it was like, the timing was great because we're on the, about to do our biggest annual conference. And so I've been mulling this over for like the last, 4 months. And I'm not sure if I want to disclose it yet on this podcast. I might just save it for
Tell me
August.
your secrets, young man.
But I have something that is deeper and more significant. And for my clients, they will say, oh, we've seen signs of that since like 2012. He's just never said, this is the new torch. This is the new direction we're going. So I'm going to launch is the wrong word. I'm going to have a really good conversation with a lot of our clients around this new thing. So I guess the answer is, if you're a founder or you're an executive or you're in school, if you're not constantly trying to light the fire in your belly, if you're not constantly trying to figure out what's the big problem you want to solve or what's the thing you're going to get passionate about, energy comes and goes. So you have to constantly find new ways to get yourself out of bed in the morning. So, today at 53 is very different from 33.
I suspect there's a thread. We've known each other for close to 10, 15 years now.
Yes.
Do you remember who introduced us?
Spencer
Askoff, the great Spencer Askoff. Hi, Spencer. There's a thread that I've observed being adjacent to you in some of this incredible success you've had. And you have an incredibly curious mind.
Yes.
And I often, when asked to describe you, described you as one of the quickest learners with the highest clock speed I've met.
Thank you. I'll just say thank you.
I think that's a thing you need to fuel.
Yes, I do.
Because unaddressed, I know you live a pretty healthy lifestyle. Unaddressed and unfilled, it probably gets you in
drugs
trouble.
And alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. It gets you in trouble. That's why people drink, to quiet their mind.
Yep.
You have a very active mind.
Yes.
And so you focus it in a very productive, frankly, kind manner, which is you help this team, this group, this movement of real estate agents to progress.
Yeah.
And that seems to fuel you.
Yeah.
Hey, I realize we haven't described the Tom Ferry business for a moment. For those that might be listening, out, maybe some venture capitalists, maybe some of my pals outside of real estate.
Sure.
What is the business?
So we have an events business. We have a coaching, which is like reoccurring revenue client relationship business with about 237 coaches in 7 countries, clients now in 29 countries, events business, coaching, business consulting, and then products, right? So whether it's a new AI tool or a book or, something you could purchase off the shelf at scale. So it's really those 3 things. We specialize in the real estate space. It's about 95% of all of our clients are in residential real estate. As I mentioned, 29 countries around the world. We've got products in 7 or 8 languages. So basically we're in the help residential real estate agents, team leaders, executives, and then adjacent mortgage, title, escrow, closing services businesses, just do a better job at what they do. Sales, marketing, strategy.
Love it.
Is that simple?
Yep. It is pretty straightforward. Yeah. How big a business is it? People? How many teammates do you have?
So 400-ish, if you count our independent contractor coaches, which we're all one company, sales, marketing, engineering, ops, leadership, finance, the whole gamut. 3 locations, actually technically 4, I guess, Connecticut, Dallas, Orange County, and Boise.
Okay. I love those locations.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go to speed round. What's your personal B-hack?
Oh, this one I play around with a lot. So I have so I wrote a 20-year vision for my wife and I and my family in 2015. And the vision for me is like watching my son throw my grandson in the air in Jackson Hole at our property, which is in process. But all that really is I want to be the dad to my kids that I always believed I could. And I think that's probably for every entrepreneur, if you have kids, like that's one of the great battles, right? Because I see a lot of people that are phenomenal parents, but they don't have it all. And I want to say this with the most respect, because somebody's going to listen to me and say, hey, I've got it all. And I'm going to say to you, God bless you. Like I am just so obsessed about what I do professionally that even if my kids are listening, they'll say, yeah, like dad's very committed to his work. But I never missed a tennis match. I was always at the football games.
How'd you do that? That seems impossible.
Because if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. So I schedule my entire personal life and then go to my team and say, now book me as often or tell me all the things that I need to do. But I've always started with that, but it's hard. It is. When we started the business, I literally said to my wife, sweetheart, we're not going to make any money until we do $10 million in revenue. And we're not going to make any significant money until we get to 20. And that, from what I can tell, is 8 to 10 years out. So basically, I'll see you in 3 years. I'm going to go to work 7 days a week. I'm going to be in the office, at the home office. So you be CEO of the house. I'll be CEO of the business. We will meet in the middle. We'll still do some vacations, but we're a startup. So we got to be mindful. We didn't raise any capital. So let's be mindful. So I will come home, be with the kids. And then I would go back to work from, 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning and rinse and repeat. And
so intention.
That's just,
so you've brought great intention to it.
I tried, but I think still, even as I say this, like I still have guilt about it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know a founder that doesn't have some guilt about it. Like,
you bet.
So,
by the way, I don't know anyone that doesn't have guilt about seeking perfection.
Well, especially what at the end of the day, like when you die, like, you're not going to be surrounded by your clients. You know what I mean? You're not going to be surrounded by your executives. Yeah. You hope to be surrounded by your family, your loved ones, your kids, your grandkids, friends. Your spouse, your friends. Like it's that, right? So I think that, that journey for me, like that's the personal thing. Like I want to be that guy.
I love it. It's powerful and it's clear. And I think it's something many folks share, but don't feel like they can achieve yet.
Yeah.
And it's good to hear that even someone with success and scale and a company and intention struggles with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to veer a little bit, but we're going to keep moving this fast because this is the speed round.
All right. Sorry, I didn't answer that fast.
So that's nicely said. You leap out of bed. It's 4 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Say that again?
You leaped out of bed. It's 3 or 4 a.m., which I think is a frequent thing. You run to your laptop. What's the thing that is often the first thought on your mind that you're writing down? And it's not go to the bathroom, by the way.
No, I actually don't go to my laptop.
Yep.
I just go to my phone, and it's usually like go to the gym, and on the way to the gym, what am I going to listen to while I'm in the gym? So that like I'm very conscious of what I put into my brain first thing in the morning sets the tone for the day.
Okay.
So you're not going to find like, constant negative news and Fox bullshit and just all that stuff. Like I'll get to Bloomberg's top 5 at like 9 o'clock in the morning. You with me? But in the morning, it is just, I'm either listening to like a little dance music, like so I want to get myself fired up, or I'm listening to something on high speed.
Any new favorites?
Just EDM, just go, right?
Yes.
Just,
okay.
You know what I mean? So I think I'm very conscious of that. And then every morning I take a photo and I write out the 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I text someone with intention to say, I appreciate you, and here's what I appreciate about you, and I'm just sending you love, and you don't even have to respond. And that's been
that must surprise people.
It does, because especially when it's someone I haven't talked to in like 7 years, and I have a like legitimate intention around the text.
I'm gonna adopt that.
Yeah, that's actually one that I got from a friend, Sean Aker, and I was like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
you coach some of the most successful CEOs, brokers, agents.
Yep.
Is there a thread? Think about this, visualize this. There's someone, maybe they're 30 years old, maybe they're 35, maybe they're 28, maybe it's your younger self. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But they've got the drive, they've got the intention. Almost everyone has the IQ to be successful. They're curious about what the thread is between these very successful people, many of them entrepreneurs that you coach. What's the thread or the commonality that you see in these people?
The greats have the gift of the arc of perspective, that they don't get so locked into how they've always done it, the way it's always worked, that they're able to step back, see the whole thing holistically, and then recommit and dive in. And I think where a lot of people struggle is they just sit here, right? So, name dropping a tad, Gina Bavari, who I've worked with for 3 decades, right? CEO of Home Services.
Very famous real estate CEO.
Huge number, most influential guy, right? Every week.
West Coast offense.
Right, West Coast, right? So, but we talk about, okay, let's take a step back. What are we not seeing? What's everybody else doing? What do we need to be paying attention to? What's happening outside of the industry? What is the zeitgeist of the day? And how are we going to play into the zeitgeist? I would remind him all the time that my mentor worked for Walt Disney, and Walt Disney studied Mad Magazine, like put it up on the walls. And I jokingly say, my era, Mad Magazine is South Park. And if you don't watch South Park and you don't understand, like that's the zeitgeist. They make fun of everything. It's the cultural, it's like what's going on today. If you just get locked into real estate, you just get locked into real estate. If you just get locked into
being able to
mortgaging,
step back, have context,
bigger worldview.
Maybe don't sweat the little detail in an emotional manner. It sounds like to me, because perspective helps with that. Okay, you've got a magic wand.
That's one, but there's a bunch. But yes.
Okay, give me the second.
The second one would be the constant reimagining themselves every 18 months. That this business is boring. Right? After a while, business is boring. It is, more digits, more numbers, more people, more execution, hiring, training, developing, So if you're not constantly reimagining yourself, finding other thing that lights the fire, all the greats have, whether it's a little OCD, they're a little on the spectrum, they're like all the ones that I work with that are unbelievable are like maniacal. But what happens is they run out of steam on a project. So they just do it like crazy and they make a fortune and it grows the business exponentially. And then they go, why am I doing this? And then they've got to reinvent again. Right. And usually you and I both, because you taught me this, Spencer taught me this, scale thyself. So do it and then scale, do it and then scale, do it and then scale. On. Right.
It's the curiosity. It's the invention that drives people. I'm visualizing actually a customer of yours and ours and a friend in, I won't say who, but San Diego real estate, who came to me in a moment in a hallway and said, oh my God, the real estate business is more successful than ever.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Bingo.
Because I'm bored.
Bingo. Maybe
I'm going to open restaurants. And I was like, don't do that.
So Steve Azonian just said to me, what percentage are you engaged in your business right now? And I said, Steve, I'm like 98%. He's like, cool. Because if you go to 80, replace yourself as a CEO.
Bingo.
And I was like, got it.
Steve's a wise man.
Very wise.
Okay. So you have a magic wand.
Yeah.
And you can change. You don't have to worry about the costs.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about the impact. It's magic. You can change one thing about your company. What one thing would you change about this company?
Well, I'm in the process of it. So this is near and dear to my heart. Every employee has ChatGPT 4 on their phone in the closest possible connection to, their thumb. And it is AI plus me. Like that's the one thing. Like I go back to the conversation around what does it take to build $1 billion business. In the past, it took 100,000 people. Then it got to like 10,000 people because of this dial up, right? Then, look at like Instagram did it with like 13 people. Well, the next $1 billion businesses are going to be started by like 3 people and AI, and then they will scale from there. So I'm trying to figure out how do I take AI and effectively integrate it into every ounce of the business. And literally just had this meeting with all the employees and just said, hey, I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to enhance you. It is AI plus you, your humanity, and AI's ability to do everything faster, more efficiently with code interpreter. Like, look at the data. Like, hey, I can't afford Snowflake, but I can afford
AI,
that.
The ChatGPT example on your phone is to amplify your team's capability
1,000%.
Because you think that will make a bigger business and everybody more productive. So it's
1,000%.
We've talked about this.
Grow the business and not have to do it like do it exponentially, but not to do it exponentially through more headcount, right? I'm trying to figure out how do I do it with less headcount potentially and do 3-4 times the volume we're doing.
Yeah, I think about this. We've talked a little bit about this. Our base software system at Tomo is called Iron Man.
Yep.
So it's to take a extremely talented individual, put them in a magic suit,
yes,
the Iron Man suit from the movie,
yes,
and make them into a superhero,
yes,
and make them more productive,
yes,
and give them better insights. And if I were a real estate agent or a salesperson, know my customers' wants,
yes, at
my fingertips with much less pain.
Yes.
That's compelling. Okay,
Jarvis.ai would tell you early on you should change that name. Because they got Disney came after them, and then they became Jasper. They were Conversion, then Jarvis, then now Jasper.
Yeah, we'll not follow the trademark anytime soon.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
You take the same magic wand.
Yeah.
You could wave it in the real estate industry, this industry that you serve.
Yep.
What would you change to the real estate industry if you had a magic wand? One thing, anything you want.
The first thing I would want is there would be a standard in the industry for real estate professionals. That's one. Number two, so if you can't sell X number of homes annually, you can't be in the business anymore. Right. The second thing is we need to get back to legislation at the National Association of Realtors to start fighting for consumers at a deeper, more efficient level, and for real estate professionals. That I'm not saying NAR's entirely dropped the ball, but certainly the last 4 years have been a struggle for the industry. So we need to maybe reimagine what are the bylaws and what's the focus of NAR. And maybe, Bob is retiring in 2024, so maybe the next person that when she steps in, maybe she's going to take this and say, let's get back to really good legislation to really help. Because we're between 2 and 7 million houses behind right now, and there's no plan in place to solve that.
Okay. So you're saying if you had a magic wand, what I heard you say is set a set of expectations and performance obligations to be in this business.
I have a third.
Okay.
I am the most anti-union person you will ever meet.
Okay.
I think unions were really great when we had 7-year-olds in mines and we were treating them unfairly and people were dying. That was horrible, right? Today, if you're a bad CEO, everybody knows about it, right? So I think we need to move towards something like a union for real estate agents, because I do believe the retirement issue for real estate agents is nearly impossible. Right. So they sell houses for 15 or 20 years. If they have a wonderful career, 30 years, and most of them don't buy enough of their own product. They don't set aside enough money for retirement. So I would want some sort of universal strategy around a percentage of every check that they get to go towards a retirement account. So when I say unionize, I don't really want a union, but I want some of the benefits, some of the positive benefits that you see from unions, not the we all vote this way or vote that way.
What was popping in my head is, oh my gosh, those that are the least productive would have the time to run the unions. I don't want that.
You don't want that. But I want,
but you want a safety net.
Yeah. If you're a real estate agent, you should be able to get, a credit union of yours. You should be able to get a retirement plan. You should be able to get insurance. They're the heartbeat of 17% of the GDP of our country.
Strategy around safety.
Yes. Yeah. So I would want something like that, because I believe they all worked way too hard as young entrepreneurs, young, old, not at age. They work way too hard to not have some of these basic safety, not safety protection, safety, finances, health insurance, all that.
You bet. Tom, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we do on the phone with each other.
Yes.
Often.
I like this. And for an hour, usually it's like 15 minutes. Okay, got to go back.
Yeah, we talked a lot slower today than normal.
That is true. And I got a skateboard.
And you got a skateboard.
I'm going to ride that this afternoon with my dog.
Don't
I can't wait.
break your ankle.
I promise not to.
I will get a call.
I'm not worried about the ankle. I'm worried about more the
head.
The noggin.
Okay, I still don't want to break your ankle.
Yes.
You got a big event coming up. Podwand, I think it was a blast.
Yeah, super fun. Thank you.
Thanks for launching it with me. And it's a great place to stop.
Yeah. All right, man.
See ya.
We're out.